Hello and welcome to another episode of Mysteries with a History, where you'll be taken on a wild ride into the unknown, the strange, and the mysterious. Like you, I have questions, and like you, I want answers. And with each episode, we will peel away the layers to look for the truth. A few quick announcements. For those of you who like to chill with ambient space music, I started a new channel about a week ago now called Cosmic Portals, where I have posted some of my music tracks already and I'll be posting some more soon. People have asked me, Christina, how have you been able to make this kind of music? And at first, it was totally on my laptop, but I just recently got myself a Christmas gift. And I got one of these bad boys, an Akai mini piano type thing, where back in the day, let's say in the 90s, this thing would be an entire studio. And now it's just this small, 12 inches of amazing technology, and it has made making music so much easier. So if you enjoy chilling out or needing to relax or even meditate, this new channel, Cosmic Portals, is going to be your place. I originally made it for myself because I suffer with insomnia, and I've heard some really good feedback regarding those that have also listened to that track. On Tuesday, this last Tuesday, instead of shifting the paradigm, we did a 2022 channel wrap up of the year along with a review of the new documentary Missing 411, the UFO Connection. But let's get into today's topic. Triangular UFOs are a topic that has hit the news again with the recent new sighting over the Las Vegas Strip during just like right before Christmas, with videos being posted to various social media. While local TV stations and news outlets have rushed to debunk it as a rare weather phenomenon, many witnesses and others have said that this doesn't look like anything attributable to the weather. Triangular UFO sightings are common and have a long history. Some say they are secret military aircraft tech, while others say they are replicated extraterrestrial craft. Today, we're going to look into many cases and theories in regards to these fascinating aspects of the UFO mystery. And to help me with today's topic, let me bring in my friend and co host, Jimmy Church of Faded Black Radio and Puck the Puck Wedgie. Jimmy, how's it going?
I made it. Whew.
Rock on.
Oh man, how you doing, Christina?
Jimmy, it's a Beanie Thursday. Where's your
Oh,
beanie?
I didn't know it was Beanie Thursday.
So now with this show, you have to eat ramen before the show, and then you got to wear a beanie during the show. That's just a part of the ritual. Even Puck is wearing his beanie, which I made personally, and I am no seamstress whatsoever. And you can tell when you look at this beanie, but he appreciates it because it keeps his head very warm. Also a cute little scarf as well. But yeah, it's Beanie Thursday. So while we wait for Jimmy, let's say hi to people in the live chat. Jessica, Chris, DL, Joe, Hides, Lord, another Joe. No, this is the same Joe. XR, Darkstar, Summer. Welcome everyone to watching this live stream on everything related to triangular UFOs. Okay, now Jimmy has his to the curb beanie with the tag
No,
still attached.
I can't find my beanie.
Oh, so we're wearing a cap. I
But
see it
it's got
now.
a tag.
But
It's got a tag.
it's still got that tag.
It's a hat with a tag. That's why
It's still to the curb.
Am I to the curb?
You betcha.
Yo, yo, yo. Okay. Triangle you. Do I look like? You know what? It's the holidays. Happy New Year, everyone. Holy crap. We're heading into today is December 29th.
I know. It just flew
Man.
by.
So, and I'm prepared. I'm to the curb. I heard you say as I was, I don't know where my beanie went. I'm pretty upset about that actually. Ramen. I heard you mention ramen before we get to. I found the secret ingredient. Are you ready? This is not a paid endorsement. Okay. All right. You ready? Everybody take note.
Okay.
This is here in the bunker because I was just using it. Mike's Hot Honey.
Honey.
Hot. It's hot. Hot honey.
Okay.
And it's honey, right? And you can see it's dark red. Mike's Hot Honey. Now, it's so hot, but it's honey, right? They have a spicy version of this. No, this is just get this.
That's an interesting little piece to put into your ramen, but there are recipes where people put brown sugar, which is white sugar and molasses. So I guess honey isn't too weird.
This is in ramen. Oh man,
I have to try it.
It's absolutely incredible. You can put this on anything. Put it on your cornflakes. It doesn't matter, man. It's just good. Mike's Hot Honey. Whew, just go and do it. Go. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Go straight to Mike's Hot Honey.
And this is not sponsored.
I'm serious. You know what I do? I've got a few bottles of that. I've got it on my island. No matter what I'm cooking, just right on the top of it, man. It's absolutely incredible. Okay, black triangles.
Let's get into this.
Huge subject. I have my own little sighting. We don't need to go into that. I'm waiting for the real, the black triangle sighting. I'm assuming that if I keep my vibe going out to the universe, that it's going to happen one day, and I'm looking forward to it. But I haven't had like the black triangle sighting. We're going to go over the biggest of them today, and it's going to be a pretty good deep dive. And I don't even know where to start. You mentioned Las Vegas, and I did see the reports, and I watched some of the videos. It was the one that was like over a strip club, right?
A gentleman's club.
Okay. One of those places that I don't go to, so I have no idea. But I've seen the videos and I saw some of the claims. It was an interesting piece of footage. The other stuff that has come out over this last like 2-3 weeks with searchlights, in the sky, bouncing off of clouds and the debunking of some of those videos, and for the claims to go to strange weather anomaly, which takes me straight to swamp gas, right? Or something else. Yeah, there you go. The Sapphire Gentlemen's Club. What does it say? The world's largest. Now that is just strange.
It is.
It's right. A strange video. I think it's worth looking into. You know what killed the video?
What?
It's over. The headlines were UFO over Gentlemen's Club, right? UFO spot video of UFO over strip club in Las Vegas, trying to immediately put a label onto this and to how it needs to be perceived. And that, I think but the video itself is pretty amazing. I think it's worth looking into.
It's very spectacular. It definitely went viral, at least in our community, very specifically on Twitter. There were a lot of mainstream outlets that wrote about this, but as you said, as soon as they very briefly described this, what people were seeing, they said, but it's probably a weather phenomenon because blah, 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 blah. And look, those things should be considered. Do not get me wrong. We have to think about all the plausible explanations before we get into that rabbit hole of UFOs. But when you're looking at this video, you're like, weather anomaly? I mean, that looks pretty wild if you ask me. Now, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, you can jump over to YouTube so that you can watch that video, which is only a few seconds long. You can also find it online. But It is, I think, one of the reasons to why I wanted to do today's topic was that particular video, along with because Jimmy, you didn't ask me, Christina, why did you pick this topic for
Well,
today?
I thought it was because of the gentleman's club.
Well, it was, but also,
I mean, you
what
kind of answered that. I mean, okay, but please continue. Why black triangle? Why triangle UFOs this week?
well, not only was it for this video that took place in the Las Vegas Strip a few days before Christmas, but also when I was watching the documentary Missing 411, the UFO Connection, there were two witnesses that saw a triangular craft take an elk. And I'm like, huh, you know what? That'd be a really cool topic for today.
Okay.
So that's that's how we got here, Jimmy.
That's how you do it.
That's how you do it.
See, that's what I love about this subject, and I'm going to jump straight into it. But that's what I love about this subject. You just read one little thing. You're going in this direction. You read one. The next thing you know, you go, and that takes you. And that's what I love about the subject. When I was a kid, in 1995, when I was a kid. So what was I, 25, 30 years old? And there was this website called UFO Mind out of Las Vegas. And this was 1995 at the beginning of the internet. It was just a series of links on the UFO subject, people, cases, historical things, documents, websites. There weren't many websites out at the time, but it was a pretty complex and deep website. It was the rabbit hole golden chest of coins. It was just one click after another. And it took me months to go through the entire website. But what it allowed me to do is what you're doing here is left turn, right turn, left turn, right turn, left turn, deep into these subjects. And I love it when it happens that way. And in this case, it was David Paulides. Yeah, very cool.
I thoroughly enjoyed that documentary. So let's get into kind of the description of a black triangular UFOs before we even get into the cases. Now, it sounds pretty self explanatory, but there's a few different types of black triangles. Isn't that right, Jimmy?
Yes. Now here, let me put on my glasses. Oh man, that kills the to the curb. The to the curb just got assassinated. Just got taken out. Just got taken out. I was looking at a couple of. Is it true that only specific parts of the carcass? I haven't seen David Paulides' new movie yet. It's on my watch list, so I can't answer that directly. Let's swing off of that. I was just looking at that question. This image here, I would okay. Before we do the deep dive, I want everybody to look at some of the similarities between all of these cases, and which are one thing that repeats: a single red light, right? And here we have that here. Some cases it's strobing, others it is not. We have a lot of reports of a single white light on each corner of the triangle. We have some descriptions of a front to the triangle and then a backside of the triangle. Some of them are equilateral triangles. Some are concave with a concave backside. Some are elongated where they're more of an arrow shape. What is similar between all of them? Lights on the bottom, 3 white lights, 1 red light, silent, and they hover. They slow down and then dart away at quick speeds. And these reports are not modern. They go back into deep history with all of these very consistent things between them.
That's right. And also, what's another unique feature about these particular craft is that they have a shiny reflective surface as well. Usually, and as you mentioned, completely black, you have those lights, but there are different types of shapes. You have this particular black triangular shape. You have the check mark or the chevron shaped, also known as the boomerang shaped. And then we can even get into the concept of the TR3B as well, which is very similar to this image that we're seeing now. But it seems like with that one in particular, from people that have alleged sightings on that one, is that you're getting that red light in the center of that triangle.
Now let's. I like what you just did right there. So let's stay there because there are basically three distinct Mark Tasaka. There are
Thank you so much, Mark.
three. Thank you so much, Mark. Uh, Three distinct types of triangle sightings, and one of them is not so triangular, but we do have the TR3B, which may be terrestrial. I think that most of the accounts with that is that that's the United States Air Force. That's a secret access program, and that's what the TR3B is. Then we have this one, which is a boomerang description. Now, there are a lot out there. This is a boomerang shape, right? A V shape with a string of lights that are on the bottom. And in some cases, these descriptions have been, a mile wide. That these domes of light underneath aren't that bright, but they're luminescent, and they are in some cases, maybe 100 feet across. If this object is a mile wide, well, you're looking at a pretty significant dome of light there. This has been attributed, of course, most famously to the Phoenix lights, which we will get into. But I would say that the sightings have been all across the United States with this type of craft and description, but also with Hudson Valley. And Hudson Valley was, oh man, probably 15 years before the Phoenix Lights. Phoenix Lights was 1997, and Hudson Valley, my aged brain, early 80s, 81, 82, 83, somewhere in there. And we'll get into that too as well. And then, of course, your classic black triangle. And the different descriptions that have been out there, a lot of them are equilateral, just a triangle, right? An equilateral triangle. But others, more arrow shaped, like some Imperial battle cruiser from Star Wars. And I've had many witnesses tell me about these directly. I've read the accounts, but I've had eyewitnesses describe these very, very, very large, elongated, arrow-shaped black triangle motherships, if you will, very, very big. Stevensville is a good example of that. Texas.
Yeah, that's an interesting case. And right next to practically flying saucers, the triangular UFOs or these boomerang type ones are also they're incredibly common sightings to have. And in the last few decades, they've been more popular. More people have been seeing these craft in the sky compared to other UFOs aside from orbs as well. But when we are looking at some of the famous cases, let's go ahead and start off with the Phoenix Lights, as many people that are listening are familiar with it, but there are probably a few new listeners that have never heard of this case. So we'll just briefly touch on it. What took place in 1997, Jimmy?
Yeah, and yeah, I was just a quick, for transparency, I was in Phoenix when this went down. It went down on Thursday night, March 13th, 1997. I was in Phoenix with a bunch of friends of mine, Billy Siegel specifically. But we weren't looking at the sky. We were looking down at our drinks at an outdoor cafe. But here's the deal. So I got back Friday, and I get in from the airport, and I put my luggage down, and I turn it on the TV, and the news is on. And literally, the newscaster says, last night in Phoenix, large UFO was sighted by thousands of people as it flew over. And I was like, what did he just say? Phoenix? And I'm thinking, where was I last night? What was I doing? And I missed it. So what had happened, it flew over 3 states. We had sightings in Nevada, of course, Arizona, couple of things closer to the Mexico border too, as well, down in Tucson. And I said 3 states, 2 states, and Mexico. And the sighting started that evening over Las Vegas. It took a path that went east and then turned south over Luke Air Force Base, flying directly over Phoenix, basically following the 10 freeway. Now, the 10 freeway, this is a very important point here. The 10 freeway runs east and west across the United States. It goes from California, goes from Los Angeles, ends up goes through Texas, goes all the way through the southern states, ends up in Florida. But when it goes through Arizona, the 10 freeway instead of just this consistent line east-west in a straight line, 10 freeway in Phoenix turns south, and it goes south to Tucson and then continues east. The craft followed that basic line. So it comes across Arizona, gets to Phoenix, it follows the 10 freeway south into Tucson, and then continues into Mexico. It was cited by thousands of people, including the governor of Arizona, Fike Symington. And the news reports that were coming in, we had jets that were scrambled at Luke Air Force Base. We've got recordings of pilot to tower. We've got Kurt Russell, the actor, who heard about the case after it happened, but he called into the tower. He was the civilian pilot that was calling the tower asking about this triangle UFOs. He was landing his plane with his son in Phoenix. So yeah, it's probably one of the most cited. When I say one of the largest sightings of a UFO, one of the most documented that we have in UFO history.
Not only that, but probably one of the biggest sightings in the sense of how big this craft was
Mm-hmm.
as well. So it blew a lot of people's socks off. It was brushed off very quickly that no, it wasn't actually extraterrestrial, but in fact, it was just the military or it was flares. And while that sounds really disappointing for the people that actually witnessed this back in 1997, they said, no, that's impossible. It was completely quiet. It was hovering incredibly slowly, and there's no way it could have been our military. So that's probably one of the most important and famous sightings in modern times. But there's quite a few others that people have encountered when it comes to these just very interesting shaped UFOs. And one of them took place, and I'm trying to find a good one that I really liked, but let's go ahead and let's talk about the Hudson Valley. It's another very famous case, but once again, there are new viewers and listeners that may not be familiar with it. And this was a UFO flap, meaning that it was multiple days. In this case, it was multiple years that UFOs were being seen in the Hudson Valley in New York. And it's one that really makes you this one is a real head scratcher. Why were there so many sightings in a short period of time? I mean, 3 to 6 years is not that short, but in a sense, it kind of is. So, Jimmy, you were young at this time. Were you ever told of this story, or did you ever hear it in the news or
I
read it in
did.
the newspaper?
It was a big story. It was 1983, so I was 22, 23 years old at the time, and it continued for 4 or 5 years. And as it continued, there were lots of photographs, there were lots of videos, lots of eyewitness the sighting reports, and the news was completely covering this. But I think that what's most important here for everybody to absorb, that it got so out of control, 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 that it got so especially in the beginning, but it was out of control for 3 or 4 years. We are talking about hundreds hundreds of cars that were pulled over on the freeway,
Yeah.
everybody getting out of their cars and looking at this. Now, okay, it's before cell phone cameras, it's before this, it's before that. So the documentation of what was going on in real time with these cars, we don't have a whole lot of that. But what we do have are hundreds of witnesses all describing the same thing. They were all V shaped, chevron shaped, arrow shaped, with lights on the leading edges, moving silently across the sky. There were different sightings on different nights. Okay. And there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sightings. This went on for years. Some of them were extraordinarily big. There were lots of reports of smaller craft, and immediately the debunking started to come in. And also, there were attempts at hoaxing the event as well. And I believe, and I think there's a lot of evidence for this, that there were owners of ultralight aircraft after the sighting started, that they started to string up their ultralight aircraft with Christmas lights, and they would fly around in formation in this area, freaking people out. But these weren't the same. There were people that were going, man, you can hear those. You can hear the engines.
Right.
You know that that's an ultralight. That's not what we saw last night, and so forth. And then these craft, some people followed them all the way to the airport and watched them land.
Yeah.
So, so the hoaxing part was debunked. What was cited by everybody else for years still remains a mystery, but it was literally thousands and thousands of people, just like Phoenix Lights.
And with this attempting to debunk it, what they had said where it was just multiple airplanes in really close formation to create this boomerang shaped UFO. And then my question would be, why? For what purpose? To be on the news? And
Well,
then what?
well, of course, that is the purpose, right? There were people that were trying to get clicks.
Yeah. At that time, which
Yeah.
is like newspaper reads.
Yeah, exactly right. And so they could show their friends, look, so this is us last night. You know, it was our ultralight club. But here's the thing with that: the people that witnessed the ultralights all said the same thing. It's funny when you go back and read it. You could see that it was they're trying to fly in formation. They're trying to do, but you could tell that it was a string of ultralights, right? Trying to fly in formation, and people thought it was entertaining and stuff, but no, it wasn't what was originally cited and continued to be cited for years.
And that's the key point. For years. If you're really going to do a hoax, maybe once or twice, fine. But 3 to 6 years, I mean, come on. That is some real dedication. And then once again, for what?
It is. I've driven through Hudson Valley a few times, and I remember I was with a friend, and I see like a sign, and then he says something. I went, "Oh, this is Hudson Valley." We're on the freeway. It's rolling hills. It's forest. It's beautiful, by the way. Absolutely beautiful, stunning. All I could think of was the triangles in the sky, you know, and the rolling hills. And what did the people see back then? And it's a large area too, as well. It's not like a small village or town. It's a very long stretch, a big chunk of New York right there. But yeah, I've been there. And just to look around and wonder what it must have been like to just look up in the sky and see this night after night.
I can't imagine. Logan, thank you so much. It says the real men in black are assigned to the 71 13th Special Activities Group in Fort Belvoir. Happy New Year, Cristina and Jimmy. Much love. Thank you so much.
Yeah, right on, Logan Black. Yeah, good old Fort Belvoir. Okay. Yeah, he's probably right, actually.
So, Jimmy, what's the next case that you want to cover regarding
We
triangular
have
UFOs?
to. I kind of want to do a couple of things. Let me bust this out. Let me see if I'm okay. Let's do the Belgian wave.
Oh, okay.
Let's do the Belgian wave. And there's a couple of reasons why I want to do that. I want to do Psalm 1. I want to do St. Clair, Illinois. We've got a long list of stuff, but I want to do the Belgian UFO wave. And what I have here, let me pull this up. Okay. So I'm going to present this picture. And in doing so, I want to start off with this for a few different reasons. And one of them is I'm here to always break hearts. Okay, so here is what may be can you take the smash the like button off whoever's running the channel?
Me? Okay,
Yeah.
I took it
Oh,
off.
yo, really? It's you. No, it's not. No, it's not. By the way, Christina's wearing 2 arm casts today. I didn't want to reveal that, so she's not clicking on any buttons. You don't have to reveal. She's got 2. She's got 2.
No, I'm only wearing one, and I'm wearing long sleeves so that I didn't show people it. But I slid on
No,
black eyes.
that's not what happened. She was playing keyboards, making her trance EDM music, and got carpal tunnel. You need to lay off on the keyboard, man. Okay, so let's get back to this. The Belgian UFO wave. This is what may be. There it is. Check it out.
Yeah, it's
Playing EDM music.
whoever slipped on black eyes, you know how it is, and it happened to me twice, one after the other. First time it was funny. Second time, it just hurt.
Let me tell you something. Every rap artist with an MPC drum machine has gone through the same thing. You are now in an exclusive club. You have the MPC sampling carpal tunnel elbow. She has no idea what I'm talking about right now. She held it up to the camera. She held it up to the camera. The MPC. Okay, so let's get back to the belt. This photograph is probably the most seen UFO photograph in history. And one of the reasons why it is one of the most seen photographs in history, it was taken in 1990. So at that point in time, TV is taking off, and TV was already taken off, but cable television, and you had different documentaries and UFO things, and then cable TV. And direct TV. This photograph was used every time UFO was mentioned anywhere. So we got this boom, boom, boom all the time. That's it. It's probably the most seen UFO photograph, and it's fake. It's fake. Now the photograph. So it goes out for 20 years. For 20 years, it's out there, and then the people that took it, and so the Belgian UFOs, right? You see it in a documentary. Boom! This is the photograph you see. Well, the photograph did become a worldwide phenomenon, but it was faked with a piece of polystyrene plastic. And one of the people that was part of it, there was 3 kids that did it, said in an interview 20 years after the picture was taken in 1990, he says, "You can do a lot with a little. We managed to trick everyone with a piece of polystyrene, and his name was Patrick, who says he pulled it off at the age of 18 with a couple of his friends. He says that we made the model with polystyrene, we painted it, and then we started sticking things to it, and then we suspended it in the air and took the photo. And all of this was done with a French magazine back in 2010. And so the photograph, which was taken in 1990, became a sensation after it was circulated around the world. It became known as the Petit Rechain picture after the Belgian town where it was supposedly taken. All right. Now, this has nothing to do with the Belgian wave. All right. Now, am I clear with what I'm saying? What happened in Belgium was real. We had the Belgian military and Air Force, the Ministry of Defense, that very top pilots, video, radar, press conferences, multiple press conferences on the wave. We had sightings not only in Belgium at that time, but all over Western Europe and then all the way into the UK.
Well, I also read that someone close to him, the one that faked this photograph, stated that he was forced by some suits to make that confession, but it wasn't true. So the photo was real. So it seems to still be controversial.
Look, yes, all of these statements were made, but I believe the two of the three over the years have gone to the house. They said, okay, we hung it from this tree. We shot it here. This is how we shot it, and this is what we did. And then they held up the board, and it was only about this big, and with the three lights on it. And I'm pretty sure it is what it is. Now, also,
I read that a few months back, so I don't.
That's okay. That's okay.
So,
look, we're always going to have, Christine. We're always going to have this kind of thing in the world of UFOs. It is. So do I want this picture to be real? I believed it to be real for 20 years. And every time I looked at it, I would try to look at the shape and try to figure things out and what is really going on. I mean, this was a big part of my life. Was I bummed out? You know, when he got a bunch of kids and he holds up the little black model and it's this big and he tells a story, you're like, okay, all right. All right. Well, you had me for a while, but that's just me. You do you, and everybody else. If you want to say that the man stepped in to debunk this, to spread disinformation, you might be right. I'm not here to dispute any of that. So there you go. For me, it's just a very small part of the Belgian UFO wave. The facts of the case, the crazy part. With the Belgian government and their defense forces, and specifically the Air Force, that's a crazy part of this story.
Well, let's get into that.
Let's go. What's the background?
Okay, hold on. I'm going to share my screen here. You give us the background.
No, you give us the background. I just gave you 15 minutes of background. I'm out of background. Okay, so here I'll give you some background. In one of the first press conferences, there were now official reports of jets being scrambled, and the press wants answers. So the Belgian government holds a press conference, and they bring up this general from the Belgian Air Force. And he takes questions and he starts showing radar data and sensor data of them tracking this, where he goes into very specific, not only flights and sorties scrambling every time they found something on radar. And then they had the ground reports from police and law enforcement, civilian sightings when a black triangle was there. They would scramble jets, and in this case, F-16s, and would chase these UFOs. And they had them on radar, and in some cases locked, and in some cases, weapons were ready to fire. Now, this is official. This is not some kids with a styrofoam triangle and fishing string in trees. We're talking about scrambled F-16 jets with some very serious pilots with very serious issues over Belgium. So yes, that's the background of this case.
And what they were able to capture on radar were that these triangular crafts are going about 1,000 kilometers per hour, or about 621 miles per hour, to 1,800 kilometers per hour, or about 1,120 miles per hour within seconds, which is another consistent theme through across these UFO sightings. So, what the computers registered exceeded the limits of conventional aviation. And this is what one Belgian Air Force colonel had told reporters in March of 1990. So we've covered a lot of stories, and it's becoming more mainstream of military officials seeing these craft in the sky or while they're doing their jobs, and they're coming out about it. Now this has been going on for decades, where we have military officials telling their stories, but I do hope that now with this new bill that has been released and signed by President Joe Biden, where there's going to be a protection for UFO whistleblowers, that more people will come forward and tell their encounters of UFOs during their time in the service.
There were a couple of very specific um, police officers that went on the record and did interviews with the radio transcripts of their sightings and how it went down. And we are talking about police officers in their car getting the radio reports coming in. They go to the location, they see the black triangle, and they file their report. They are communicating what they are seeing, and then it heads to another part of the area where it is then cited by more law enforcement, and you've got that radio transmission and that time stamped too as well. While all of this is going on at the same time over in the United Kingdom, the same sightings on the same day were also happening. So what do we do with that? This is before the age of the internet. This is not texting on phones. This is not, Twitter lighting on fire and everything. No, these were independent sightings from law enforcement and the Air Force of these countries, all happening on the same day at the same time. So yeah, this is not again something that was ever debunked. There was that part, but the other side of this, there's another very important point here. There are some reports that, and we have to remember what else was happening around this time, that this may have been the United States Air Force test flying their TR-3B. That's number one. Number two, we had the F-117 stealth fighter, and were we test flying, uh, uh, you prototype versions of that over this area to check out radar and how these craft were detected on radar. So there's these reports that for some of us may lead to some of these sightings over Belgium and Western Europe and the United Kingdom may have been the United States Air Force, and it may have been the TR-3B, and in some cases even the a test version of the F-117 stealth fighter. It doesn't explain everything for sure. It doesn't. But the United States Air Force has remained strangely silent on all of these points as well.
Michael, thank you so much. It says, I seen this the same night in Birmingham, UK. Jimmy, thank you so much, Michael. You spoke about a similar sighting in the UK on the same day. Well, there was another one that took place in the same year in the Salisbury Plain, which is right where Stonehenge is, in 1989. And Do you know which case I'm talking about?
No, but go
Or
ahead. I
okay.
know the case, but, go ahead if you've got the specifics.
I do. So, a group of 6 soldiers on maneuvers in that plane in the UK encountered this triangular shaped UFO at approximately 2 a.m. one morning. This event occurred in the winter of 1989, again, around the time of the first triangle sighting that Jimmy, you had mentioned a little bit earlier. So, according to one of the witnesses, they came across a corpse in the woods where they saw bright lights. And looking up, the men saw a large black craft which suddenly beamed a powerful light into that area. And the size of the craft was estimated to be as big as a C 130 Hercules or bigger. And the enormous craft hung motionless without sound and then suddenly departed at an incredible speed, still silent. And with these kinds of encounters that people are having during this time period, we can link this into the question of okay, what if it is ours? What if it's the alleged TR3B? How were how were people able to have this type of technology creating craft that can move at incredible speeds and be completely silent? Because even today, our aircraft in 2022, practically 2023 now, while they're super sophisticated, they're still pretty loud. So let's kind of talk about this, Jimmy, about the TR3B, because it's very it's a lot of conspiracy, it's controversial, it's alleged, but it is something worth talking about when we are having this conversation about triangular UFOs.
The we when I say we, not them, okay? I'm saying we here somewhere on Earth, we have to have anti-gravity, right? It is a desire, it's a dream, right? We've always wanted to fly like birds, right? But how do we do it? How do we just float? How do we just hover? How do we do that without props and blades and airfoils and using wind and engines and petrol gas and things like how anti-gravity, right? It's the ultimate. And there have been many researchers looking into this and still are. But the question remains, have we discovered it? Have we used it? And if we have, how would we use it? What would the craft look like? And now, when we start to have multiple eyewitness accounts of the exact same thing. I cannot tell you how many guests I've had on Fade to Black talking about exactly what you're showing right now, Christina. The exact description over vast times. So I'm talking about going back into the 60s all the way through to today, all over the United States. It doesn't matter what city that you want to mention, whether it's Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Kansas City, Chicago, Detroit, New York, Miami, Dallas, Texas. It doesn't matter. Pick a city that has been seen. Right now, is that not only our technology, but is it the TR3B that is successful? It works and it's in use, right? And that we've got this at multiple Air Force bases across the United States, training purposes, right? And there's another point to this as well. And Richard Dolan talked about this the last time he was on the show. And I think it's very important to point out that a lot of these cases say that these black triangles are seen over people's houses in remote locations, hovering over somebody's house. Now, why would that? Now, if it's extraterrestrial, that's crazy, right? That's eerie. That's spooky enough. What would they be doing? If it's our own government, that would almost, if it was our own Air Force, that would make it an even bigger story. Why would they be doing that? Well, you've got multiple cases like this with eyewitness testimony. Now, is it because it's a weapon? and not to harm the people in the house, but maybe it's got sensors on it that allow it to peer through a roof into a structure. Right, that would be good in the theater, in battle somewhere, in some contested area. If you could go in and peer through a building, well, how would you test that? Right? How would you test its stealth capabilities and its silence? Well, maybe you would be somewhere in the Midwest and fly over somebody's house at 3 o'clock in the morning when everybody's in bed, and you want to be able to check this out and see what it's able to do. So there you go.
And whether these sightings represent advanced US spacecraft, as some speculate, or something of unknown origin, their purpose remains mysterious. And David Muller did some extensive research on this, and he has written the book, and I'm looking for that title, which I actually used for today's show, and that will be in the description box below. It's called The Triangular UFOs, An Estimate of the Situation. He mentioned that in looking at all of the cases that he's looked into, which is about 17,000 triangular UFO craft sightings, he thinks that there is some type of surveillance of some nature, or scanning, or possibly even analyzing the topography. And so when you brought up the instance of these triangular craft hovering over people's homes, kind of in the middle of nowhere, what are they scanning, or what are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
Is it ours? Is it theirs? And this is actually a question that you asked me when I was first on Fade to Black, before we started doing this show together. You asked me this question: is it ours or is it theirs? And at that time, and even today, I still cannot answer that question. To my understanding, we still don't know. Could it be a mix of all of them?
That's
That's
right.
very possible.
That's
But
right.
we can't place all of our eggs in one basket stating, yes, they're all UFOs. No, they are all the governments. I think that there's a mix.
Well, is the general shape and idea? Let's go with the TR3B. This is a picture of David Marler with a model of the St. Clair, Illinois UFO black triangle, one of the most documented. We'll dovetail straight into that in just a second. Um, is this version, if it's ours, a TR3B, the Black Manta, whatever you want to call it, is it just a copy of a reverse engineered craft that was extraterrestrial, and it came to us with that shape already? Is there a reason for the black triangle shape? If it's anti-gravity, it could be any shape. It could be a cube. It could be square, right? It doesn't have to be a black triangle, or does it? I don't know. But is it us? Is it theirs? Is it a mix of both? I would say that all of the above is the correct answer, Christina. You and I and the audience certainly doesn't know, but it can't be just one thing. It can't be. There's too many different planets that are visiting this planet, right? There's just too many. There's too many. So what is it? The wave of Belgian UFOs in 1990, was that the same race of beings or the same craft that was sighted over Palmdale, 10 years ago, that my next door neighbor told me about? And he said it took up nearly the entire sky. And he was wondering why we weren't shooting at it. He was wondering where the law enforcement and the military and we've got all these military bases out here, why we weren't attacking it. That was his question. Now, was what he saw here in Palmdale the same type of craft that was seen in Belgium? I don't know. And it was 1 hour and one ET. I don't know. He said, this is my neighbor Mikey, who I've known since he was a little kid. He said he watched it. Right, he said it was blocks long, right over his house. He said he watched it just rise up, straight up, and disappear into the stars. Yeah. What do you do with that? Now, in the The St. Clair sighting, and this is David Marler here with his mock-up. This is one of the most. I've done many shows on this. I've done shows on this with David. This is one of the most documented cases that we have. It was January 4th, back in 2000, so it was 23 years ago. And yeah, we are in 2023, everybody, in a couple of days. This happened in Highland, Illinois. And there was a miniature golf. This is just the account. Miniature golf course owner. His name was Melvin Roll. And it was early in the morning. It's like 4 a.m. And he stopped by to make sure that the pipes hadn't frozen at the miniature golf course that he owned. And he's coming out. It's 4 o'clock in the morning after checking the pipes, and something catches his eye. He looks up, and there is this object. And he described it at the time, Cristina, as a floating house. And he had said that there were two rows of windows.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 2 floors of windows, I should say, 2 rows of windows. And now what I think, I'm going to jump ahead. What I think he saw was the back of the craft. He didn't see the front and sides. He didn't describe it as being a triangle, but he did call the police. And he immediately says, he identifies himself. He says, I've just seen this object in the sky. So the dispatcher turns around and radios Ed Barton, who's a police officer. This is in Lebanon, Illinois. And the radio call comes in at 4:21 a.m. Now, remember, let's put all of this into perspective here. Melvern stops by his place at 4 a.m., steps outside, sees the object, calls the police. And then shortly after that, the dispatcher at 4:21 a.m. calls Officer Barton. And Officer Ed Barton says that he saw a triangular object. All right. Now, this isn't what Melvin described a flying house. But Ed Barton said it was triangular, and it was longer, arrowhead shaped, longer than it was wide. He estimated the altitude to be about 1,000 to 1,500 feet. And he also said there were 3 white lights and 1 red light. And then shortly after that, now he also goes on and the direction that it took off in and so forth. And in that direction was Officer in the city of Shiloh, Officer David Martin. And he describes the same thing. Long arrowhead shaped black craft. He describes his at 4:23 a.m. So we have 4 a.m., 4:10 a.m., 4:21 a.m., and that was in Lebanon, Illinois. Then in Shiloh, Illinois, Officer Martin at 4:23, and then at 4:39 a.m., Millstadt, which is another city. And in Shiloh, David Martin said the direction of the craft, it was over a field, and how it disappeared, and he looked up, it was a blink of an eye. He didn't actually see the craft travel. He saw it close. He looked down, looked back up. It was on the other side of the field, heading in the direction of Millstadt. And there at 4:39 a.m., Millstadt police officer Craig Stevens reported that he had also seen the object and had it in sight. He described it over the radio. These are transcriptions from the radio chatter. He said it's huge, and he described it, and I quote, an arrowhead-shaped object. He said the craft had 3 lights on its back, and 1 in the center and 2 on either side. So on the back of the craft, a row of lights. Now listen to this. He said one thing that the others didn't get a chance to see because of their proximity to the craft and their angle to the craft. He got a clear view of the back of the craft. And he said that it had a concave back end rather than a pure triangle. And he also said in that concave section, there was a strobing white light that was going from side to side. So, with that in mind, I want everybody to take a look at this mock up that David Marler is holding here. That's the concave rear of the craft. And there's the strobing lights that are going back and forth. He said that there were 3 lights. You can see those here. And then these bands of lights, the vertical sections here, that was strobing left to right, left to right, left to right, moving from left to right. Then there was this, and let me pull this up here. I'm going to pull this down as I pull this up.
And also, Stevens had mentioned that there in the center was a red blinking light as well. So not only was he seeing the white strobe lights practically going from side to side, he also saw the red light in the center, which the other 2 policemen did not comment on. And someone asked, what year did this take place? It took place in the year 2000.
In the year 2000. And what he described, and you're right, Christina, thank you for pointing that out. He described 1 red light in the center and then 2 white lights on the outside of the red lights. He didn't say 3 white lights, but then again, this is all happening in real time. But we got a photograph. You want to see it?
Let's see it.
Are you sure you want to see it?
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Oh, man, you're no fun. There you go. So this is Officer Stevens' Polaroid that he took.
Right.
And he took a couple. This is the one that is the most popular. And now, look, I understand it's not the most perfect, spectacular photograph. It's 4:00 in the morning on a freezing cold January winter, day, and you're out there chasing UFOs, and you're a cop. I was just thankful that he had a Polaroid camera in his car. And that was one of the things that he had to go back to his car to get the Polaroid camera. Meanwhile, this craft is flying away. So he popped off a couple of images, and this is the best one. So there you go. Pretty cool, huh?
It's a really cool sighting. And in my opinion, those lights, they kind of look like people in the fetus position. When I first saw it, I was like, that was the first thing that came to mind.
What do you see?
Well, I see. Well, talking about seeing in eyes, Mystic gave me a really good point. I have contacts in, and like they get dry really fast sometimes. So I do like this like eye thing, and people kind of freak out about it. And I'm sorry, and I'm trying to like stop doing that. But like I can't rub my eyes because I have contacts and makeup on, so I gotta like roll them a certain way so that they get all the liquids back, so I can see and read my notes versus wearing glasses. I have like this ugly glare.
Go and watch the movie Men. And when you get to the end, the last 5 minutes of the film, you will never say the word fetus again in your life. Okay, so see, because you just said that, and I immediately thought of the movie Men, and I'm looking at this, and no, I don't see it.
Oh,
I don't see it. But yeah, they're right. You can see the outline of the craft. I agree with that. I'm not sure exactly what is going on here, but you can. This is the thing: the lights that you see on the top are it's a repeat of what you're seeing on the bottom, right? So the camera moved, right, or the craft moved, either or they both moved. So just look at to me, look at either the bottom row or the top row, and then that's. I don't think that's the edge of the craft, the 2 white lines. I think that's the bottom of the craft. So whichever way you want to look at this, but look at one row of light. So if you look at the top row, you can see that white line that's going across. I think that's the edge of the craft. I do. I believe that's the edge. And I'm talking about this right here. So you can see my cursor going across. There's your red light on the bottom of the craft. And there's 3 white lights here. One is off center. I don't know the direction. Uh, is the craft moving from left to right or from right to left? I don't know. I don't know its orientation either. But I think that's the edge, the bottom edge of the craft right there.
Yeah.
Spectacular photograph. Very, very, very cool. But here you have, Christina, here you have three police officers at 4:30 in the morning, three different police departments, three different cities, plus Melbourne, right? No, the owner of the miniature golf course. So that's four, all seeing this craft. And the three police officers all describing the exact same thing. It's one of the most documented cases. In David Marler's book, he's got the map of the timeline and the direction that the craft was flying in. It's remarkable. It's a bona fide real sighting.
It's a really interesting one, and David Marler did some fantastic research when looking at this case, but so many others in his book. So for those that are really fascinated in this topic in particular, I do recommend that you read his book. Once again, that book will be in the description box below. But
Okay,
what
let me before we move on, I just want to say this. There is an excellent documentary that came out almost 10 years ago about this sighting, and I forget what it's called. St. Clair UFO Black Triangle documentary, something like that. But you can find it. It's easy enough to find. Go and watch that, because the director that put that documentary together, he got all of the technical data. He got all of it. He got all of the of course, the photographic evidence. He got all of the radio transmissions. He got all of the transcripts. He compiled all of the video on camera eyewitness testimony from the police officers and Melbourne Knoll. It's all in this documentary. It's incredible. So if you haven't, go and watch that documentary.
Yeah, it is. It's really, really awesome. Moving on to our next, you know what we should talk about actually? Let's talk about the Majestic
Someone,
12 Psalm. That's right.
someone,
See, we're on the same wavelength,
One of my
Jimmy.
favorite cases. Okay, really quick. We're going to jump into this, and we're going to run a little late. I'm going to say this. I have a very important date tonight, and so I will have to run. I can run a little over, though, Christina. Okay? Since this is our last show of
Of the year.
2022. So,
I know. And then we have another year going strong doing this show.
okay, so I wanted to say this. I hate adding anecdotes, but I'm going to here. So I was filming a TV show called Hangar One. Okay, so I'm there. I'm on set, and where I am on set, there's like 5 cameras in front of me, but they were all behind this black wall with these holes, and the cameras were sticking out. So I couldn't see the camera people. There was like 10 people on the other side of it. I'm by myself, right? Doing my thing. Anyway, but they were talking to me, the crew. So Jimmy, what about? And I had a conversation with one of the camera people who I later became really good friends with. But anyway, what do you think of Psalm 1? Right? And I go, you know about that? And I'm talking to somebody behind the screen. I can't see his face. I think it's the most important thing ever. I said, me too. So while we were waiting, I have this 30-minute conversation with a face and a voice that I can't identify about Psalm 1. I think it is such an important document and book. It was how it was acquired. It is what the evidence is behind it, how it looks, how it was manufactured, how the typesetting was done, how the design was done, the dating of the film. All of this behind Psalm 1 indicates to me that it's a real document published by the military and the United States government. I think it's extremely significant and it's some of the best reading that you can ever do.
And for those that aren't familiar with that particular manual or the case of Majestic 12, we actually did a part 1 and part 2. In part 2, we also had Richard Dolan talking about it as well. So do take a look at that. If you scroll down at the bottom, near the bottom of the channel, you'll find part 1 and part 2 there. But for those that haven't seen either of those, that aren't familiar with this, we'll just give a really brief rundown, particularly on this Majestic 12 Psalm 1-01 training manual. And there's one particular section in that book. This information is now publicly available. People are still on the fence. It's a very controversial manual, as some believe it to be true, while others think that it's a total hoax. But aside from that, there is one section in that manual that is labeled Extraterrestrial Technology Description of Craft. And there it talks about triangular UFOs, and it states airfoil or triangular shape. This craft is believed to be new technology due to the rarity of the observations. Radar indicates an isosceles triangle profile, the longest side being nearly 300 feet in length. Little is known about the performance of these craft due to the rarity of good sightings, but they are believed capable of high speeds and abrupt maneuvers similar to or exceeding the performance attributed to disc shapes. And this was a 1954 description, as Jimmy had mentioned, by our own government. And it is something that I think is worth looking into. And then from there, you can decipher on if you think it is real or not. But if you're interested in the UFO phenomenon, it is kind of a mandatory read.
Yes. Now, I gave everybody a sneak preview. Psalm 1, everybody listening right now after the show today, go just SOM-1. That's all. It's 101, but Psalm 1 manual. You can go and look at all of the pages, and it's all out there, and go and read it and find out about it for yourself. But it's the story behind this. This was the package that was sent to Don Berliner of MUFON, and there's his address. And this is he's given this address out in different MUFON presentations over the years, so it's not like we are doxing somebody here. But the manual arrived by U.S. mail as a roll of undeveloped 35 millimeter Tri-X film that was manufactured in 1954. Okay. It came in a green box that you can see here. It was addressed to Don Berliner using the same format that was provided as his contact at MUFON. Postage was paid by F meter number 2223773, made by Postalia and issued for use by Quillen's Drugs in La Crosse, Wisconsin. It was postmarked March 7th, 1994. Okay, and that's it. That's how the package came to Don Berliner in the mail. The front cover of the Psalm 1 manual is here. Let me back up. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this. Again, each page, this is what you're looking at here. This is a photograph from the roll of film. Okay, this is an image from the roll of film as it was sent to Don Berliner. And so we've got to look at a few different things here. It says April 1954. The film was manufactured in 1954. In order to get a hoax like this together, if you're going to, make some fraudulent documents, you're going to go this far, you need to go and get a roll of undeveloped film from 1954. Put that in your 35 millimeter camera and start taking pictures with it. That's what you have to be. That right there is difficult, if not nearly impossible to do. It's not impossible, but it's nearly impossible to do. So we start with that. April 1954, and the film was dated to 1954. But now, if you look at this and remember, it says 1994. The typesetting and the ability to typeset an entire document like this back then was very, very expensive. Today, there's plenty of word processing programs, and we understand what computers and software is. But back then, it wasn't the case. It's very difficult to do, and you had to have professionals and professional artists behind anything that was going to be done. So when you look at this front cover of the Psalm 1 document, you have to look at the formatting, you have to look at the typefaces, the fonts, and everything else. Was it available in 1954? Yes, the answer is yes. And the formatting of this follows traditional formatting from the early 1950s. When you go through, now we have Magic here, right? We have Majestic. We have Majestic 12 Group Special Operations Manual. You have the date of April 1954. This is a top secret Magic Eyes only document containing compartmentalized information essential to the national security of the United States. Eyes only access to the possessing of Magic 12 clearance level examination or use by unauthorized personnel is strictly forbidden and is punishable by federal law. Majestic 12 Group, April 1954. There is a document number on the bottom of the front cover as well. So that's the Psalm 1 document. And it's a book, it's an operations manual on how to identify ET craft, how to do the crash recovery, who to contact if you have encountered such a craft, and how to handle the debris and the alien bodies. All of that is in here and much more. It's a tremendous document, and I believe it to be authentic. Oh, unmute yourself.
It truly is an interesting manual, and there's many parts to Majestic 12. It's not just that manual, but also a few documents and people's names as well that were allegedly a part of MJ12. So it does require a good amount of research, but don't worry, we have already done the research, a little bit of the research for you, so you can watch part 1 and part 2, and then from there you can go on your own path and do a deeper dive. We have a few minutes left, so let's talk about the case that happened in Minnesota in 1980, January 15th.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so there was a pretty significant report that occurred over Red Wing, Minnesota in January 15th, 1980. And that's the only way you can say that state's name. Like, there is no other way you can say it. So, what's interesting about this sighting in particular was that there were multiple witnesses that were working at a nursing home at around 9 p.m. And the main witness is Brenda Simansky. And she and 5 other witnesses encountered this very quiet triangular shaped craft that was going in a zigzag formation, so much so that Brenda got a sheet of paper and started to draw the maneuvers that this craft was going, which I think is genius. Like, that is something so smart that you could do before you have, the cell phones that we do now. But it was getting so intense that she yelled for other people to come and look at the same thing that she was looking at. And then from there, they were mortified, not only because this craft was moving at extreme speeds in a zigzag formation, but it just hovered very, very close to them as well. So it came down, it was totally silent. It was practically motionless, and it hovered right just above them. And I think that would place fear in anyone's hearts that are not familiar with the UFO phenomenon. But what I see as a reoccurring theme in the 70s and 80s and the 90s is that when people have a UFO sighting, they call the police. They call 911. Jimmy, can you explain that to me? What, in your opinion, is going through people's minds during that time period to call the police when they see something unexplained?
Yeah, today it's a different story.
Exactly.
Today it's a different story. I think you could call 911, and the operator who's listening is going to know what you're talking about. Maybe they watch Ancient Aliens, right? Maybe they listen to Mysteries with the History. You just don't know. But today, it's not the taboo subject that it once was. But back, not so long ago, calling 911 and you're in a panic and you don't know what else to do, and there's 911 and you're dialing the number and you're in a panic. Taking those phone calls, no. You know what the answers are? Are you drunk? Have you been drinking? Are you imagining things? And they don't know what to do. Today it's a different story, right? You can get a response and they can understand and they know what you're talking about. Dialing 911 today is a safe thing to do. I encourage it. But back then, no. I was 10 years ago, Cristina, 10 years ago, a member of my family died. Okay. And I had to stay with his body, right? 1-room apartment, by the way, until the coroner came. And I didn't know it was against the law. If you come across a dead body, it's against the law to walk away from it. You have to stay with it. So I called the police. Police show up and they come in and we're sitting at this table. And I've got a lieutenant or something, and a lesser officer, whatever he is. And we're sitting there. I said, "Hey, what do you guys do when you get a 911 call about a UFO?" Straight up.
Valid question.
I want to know, right? We're hanging out. We got to wait for the coroner. We could be here for a few hours. Let's talk UFOs, right? And the lieutenant looked at me and said, I've got to take this call, right? He just walks out. He didn't want anything to do with it. But I was sitting there with the other, and I said, "Hey, man, how long have you been a cop?" And he said, I forget what it was. It was like 2-3 years. I said, "Okay, so you just went through the police academy." I did. I said, "Okay, what did they teach you about UFOs?" He goes, "Nothing." I go, "Nothing? No. They didn't mention anything about UFOs. They didn't." I said, "What would happen if you got a call about a UFO?" "We wouldn't." I said, "What do you mean?" No. Nobody's going to call. And that was the LAPD, Cristina. Now that was 10 years ago. What about today? Right now, what about today? I think you can talk to any cop about UFOs now. Back then, 10 short years ago, that was funny, man. That lieutenant was like,
But I like Hyde says, don't call anyone. Take a video with your phone and then from there post it online, because I don't understand. I'm not old enough to have that mentality of calling the police and having them give me an explanation on what I'm seeing, because first you have to wait a while, right?
right,
For the operating system, for them to ask for your name, your
right,
address, things
right.
like this. And they're like, "Yeah, I don't know." And I don't know
That's
what's going on with you.
even if you get through on 911.
Exactly. So for me, I think in present day, you would just whip out your phone and start recording what exactly you're seeing, because what can someone else provide you if they're not an expert or they're not in the same location as you? So
Mhm.
when people back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where they see a UFO and they call the police, it's always the same situation where the policemen, they just don't believe the sighting. They're like, "Okay, well, I don't know what to do with that. Thank you." Write it down, puts it in a cabinet, and then it's gone forever. But at the same time, we are very lucky that a lot of these people did make those phone calls because they have been documented. Nothing's been done with them, but they have been documented for researchers to be able to pinpoint hotspots, which I think is
Yeah,
fantastic. So it's kind of a catch-22.
it is, and that's the point. I remember. I have no issues with talking to the police. Some people do. I want to talk to them, and I literally, as directly as I could, I said, "Okay, man. So what you're saying is if you're driving. I pointed out the window at Sherman Way, that one of the biggest streets in the valley here. It's a ginormous street, right? Boulevard. I said, you're driving down Sherman Way. UFO lands on Sherman Way. What's the procedure? There is no procedure, man. I said, what do you mean there's no procedure? What would happen? I don't know who I would call. Who would I call? The National Guard? That was his answer too, by the way. Right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I would do. And today in 2023, in 2 days, 2023, is there a procedure in place? I think that most police officers would have an idea of what to do if there isn't something already official in there for a response, going up through with the, Arrow and some of these official protocols to come in and start reporting UAPs. Has that trickled down to major metropolitan police departments like Los Angeles and New York, right? Is there a procedure in place for law enforcement to report these things? I don't know, but I think that everybody's much more open to it.
Well, Maddie says, I was a cop for 18 years. We had 0 procedures. Wish we had. Most likely, you would have been laughed at.
I'm telling you, that lieutenant, when I asked him that question, the truth is, he literally excused himself. We had a body on the bed right there. And he's like, man, I'm going in the hallway, man. I got something else. I'm not going to sit here and talk UFOs with you, man. But don't forget, Happy New Year, everybody. And get your Mike's Hot Honey Mustard. Incredible.
I'll have to try that stuff on my ramen.
Hold on. Hold on. I just want to show something to everybody. Okay, you know what honey looks like, right? Honey. Regular honey. This is this honey. Look, it's bright. I don't know if you can see. It's bright red.
They should really sponsor you.
It's bright. Oh, look. See it dripping? See how red
it
is?
Yeah. But it looks really liquidy. Not like thick.
It's my warm fingers. Oh, man. It's hot, man. It's hot. Oh.
That's the best way. Spicy food is the best. It really clears up those sinuses and it keeps you healthy.
It's so hot that this hot coffee is going to cool it down. Oh, man. It's so good. It's so good, Mike's Hot Honey. Cristina, Happy New Year. I won't see you again until 2023. Everybody, please, Happy New Year. Another great show. We're going to just have nothing but great fun and sharing all of that knowledge for another 365 days. So, Cristina, thank you so much. Be safe out there. Take care of your, when you write those drum beats and you're ramming that kick drum, you need to just be more relaxed on the elbow and you'll get through it. Okay.
I'll try to wear some better shoes when I go outside to not slip on black ice. But Jimmy, thank you so much. I'll see you next year.
I'll show everybody the text that I said, Cristina, that's the biggest load of BS I ever heard. But there you go.
Unfortunately, it's so true. Jimmy, thank you so much. Well, what a fascinating show. We covered a lot of interesting topics. Out of everything that we covered, which one was your favorite? Now, I would like to mention that there will be a show tomorrow for weekly strange news, but if you need help sleeping or quieting the mind or allowing or wanting to allow your imagination to wander, check out my new music channel called Cosmic Portals. I will place the link in the description box below and in the live chat. And so just kind of switch off the lights and enjoy my hour tracks. They are really fun and they're very relaxing as well. I use them to fall asleep. Also, do not forget one more time that tomorrow is Weekly Strange News at 3 p.m. PST. So make sure to hit the notification bell on YouTube so that you do not miss that video. That is it for today. I'll see you tomorrow. Be safe and remember, keep your eyes on the skies.